For millennia, the galactic hegemony had ruled with an iron grip. Its influence stretched across the void, its dominion absolute. Hundreds of species had been brought under its banner, some through diplomacy, but most through the raw, undeniable force of conquest. Entire civilizations had crumbled before its relentless expansion, either kneeling in submission or vanishing into the annals of forgotten history. The hegemony's philosophy was simple: strength dictated survival. It had never encountered an opponent capable of defying its will. With fleets larger than some star systems and armies numbering in the trillions, no rebellion had lasted long, no resistance had been successful. Fear was the true weapon of the hegemony, and it had never failed until now. At the heart of the hegemony's conquests stood grand strategist Vorktal, the master of war, the architect of inevitable victory. He had never known defeat. His strategies were studied by generations of hegemony tacticians, his name invoked in hushed whispers across the conquered stars. Vorktal had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. He understood the patterns of resistance, the inevitable breaking points of species pushed beyond their limits. He was methodical, precise. There was no enemy he could not subjugate, no foe he could not crush. And now, his gaze had turned toward a small, primitive world on the fringes of the galaxy, a planet called Earth. The humans were an anomaly, a species with no interstellar presence, no known war fleets, no great galactic influence. They were isolated, a lone ember in the darkness, seemingly unaware of the greater machinations of the cosmos. Their history was violent, their unity questionable at best. Wars had plagued their past. Their own people had turned against one another for centuries. To the hegemony, they were nothing, a mere footnote in history before they even realized they had a place in it. The conquest of Earth would be swift, decisive, a formality more than a campaign. Vorktal barely considered them worth his full attention. A single transmission was sent to Earth, broadcasted in every human language, appearing on every screen, every device. It was cold, efficient, and absolute. Surrender and be assimilated, or be erased from existence. There was no grand declaration of war, no need for it. The hegemony did not ask. It commanded. It had crushed countless worlds this way before. This would be no different. The ultimatum was a mere formality, a courtesy before the inevitable slaughter. The hegemony had learned that the illusion of choice made conquests more efficient. Resistance was futile. Submission was inevitable, or so they believed. Across the galaxy, species that had once resisted and failed watched with pity. They knew the script. The humans would deliberate, attempt diplomacy, and finally bow to the unstoppable force of the hegemony. But Earth remained silent. No surrender, no negotiations, no desperate pleas for mercy. The leaders of humanity sat in dark rooms, their expressions grim, their options limited, the weight of extinction pressed against their chests. There was no precedent, no playbook for such an encounter. They were alone in this, faced with an enemy beyond comprehension. And yet, they did not yield. A mistake the hegemony would come to regret. The hegemony had expected terror, desperate pleas, or perhaps a last-ditch, reckless resistance. Instead, Earth's response was a single notification. You are attempting unauthorized access to a restricted system. Please review the terms and conditions before proceeding. The message appeared across every hegemony war console, from the bridge of their dreadnoughts to the smallest communication relays. Confused officers exchanged glances. The invasion was supposed to be swift, decisive, a textbook conquest. Instead, the hegemony's war engines ground to a halt as their systems were flooded with an unfamiliar directive, labeled Mandatory Friendship Protocols. Fleet Commander Vorktal scowled. This must be a human trick. Override it. A subordinate hesitated. Sir, we need to accept the user agreement first, then accept it. The officer grimaced. It's 800 pages long, sir. Silence fell upon the bridge. War had never looked so tedious. Vorktal had fought dozens of campaigns. He had crushed worlds beneath the hegemony's might, but he had never in all his years faced a battle like this. Every system, every ship, every weapon now required an additional step before executing even the simplest command. Warning, you must read and agree to the Galactic Digital Conduct Guidelines before deploying weapons. Frustrated officers pounded their consoles. Fleet-wide confusion escalated. Missiles refused to launch. Shields powered down unexpectedly. An attempt to override security protocols merely led to another pop-up. Would you like to subscribe to humanity's intergalactic cooperation newsletter? YN, Fleet Commander, we are locked out of our own ships. Verktal's fists clenched. Explain. The officer swallowed. All high-priority systems now require a two-factor authentication process that we do not control. Verktal stared in horror as his command console blinked mockingly. A verification code has been sent to your registered human administrator. Who in the void is our human administrator? Verktal roared. A nearby officer winced. We don't know, sir. The realization settled over them like a suffocating fog. The hegemony had lost control not through force, but through bureaucracy. A desperate attempt was made to bypass the restriction. Surely the missile launchers still worked. Surely raw firepower could break this cycle of administrative madness. Please verify you are not a bot. A series of strange images appeared on every screen. Grainy, distorted photographs of Earth City. The prompt read, select all images containing crosswalks. The officers squinted. One turned to another. What is a crosswalk? An engineer hesitated. Maybe those striped patterns, or is it the large gray paths? They debated. They selected. The screen flashed red. Incorrect. Please try again. Frustrated, Verktal grabbed the nearest console and slammed his fist against it. The images refreshed. Select all images containing bicycles. A moment later, the war room erupted into chaos. The hegemony's largest fleet loomed over Earth, primed for planetary bombardment. It was their last hope. If direct engagement was impossible, perhaps sheer overwhelming force could. Your communication systems have been compromised. Playing The Girl from Ipanema. The smooth, mellow jazz melody poured through every hegemony ship. Bridge officers blinked in confusion. Alarms were drowned under the soothing hum of human leisure music. Verktal's mandibles twitched. Cut the transmission. We can't, sir. It's hardwired into the system now. On screen, the Earth fleet remained motionless. No weapons raised. No defenses engaged. They didn't need to. The hegemony had already lost. Verktal slumped in his command chair. His empire, his fleet, his reputation, all undone by bureaucracy, pop-up windows, and smooth jazz. A single message appeared across the fleet's command screens. Welcome to the human-led Galactic Federation. Your compliance is appreciated. He exhaled sharply. This was not war. This was something worse. This was customer service. And humanity had already won. The bridge of the hegemony's flagship was a whirlwind of panic. Tactical officers barked commands, their eyes darting between flickering readouts and malfunctioning displays. Warships surged into formation, their targeting systems locking onto Earth's orbital defenses. A triumphant smirk curled on Supreme Commander Zorvax's lips. Fire, he ordered. Silence. The targeting display dimmed, the red reticles vanishing. Then a chime, a video overlay expanded across the screen. A cheerful human voice echoed through the bridge. Before you vaporize your enemies, have you considered a better night's sleep? Try Earth's new sleep-enhancing tea, crafted for conquerors and diplomats alike. Zorvax's mandibles clicked in frustration. What is this? A tactical officer swiped furiously at the console. It's an advertisement, sir. It must be watched in full before proceeding. Zorvax's eye twitched as a smiling human held up a steaming cup of tea. This war was becoming unbearable. Hegemony warships across the fleet attempted to fire their weapons. Each attempt triggered a different human advertisement. Want to unleash devastation? First, check out Earth's newest zero-gravity gaming chair. New to orbital bombardment. Learn the secrets of strategic warfare with our online masterclass. Tactical officers screamed in frustration. Battle-hardened warriors found themselves forced to endure jingles and sales pitches before they could press a single attack. On the command deck of the warship Dread Omen, Admiral Kroltak slammed a fist onto his console. Why can't we skip these? A weary officer shook his head. Sir, they don't have a skip button. The bridge fell silent in horror. Desperate to break through, the hegemony activated planetary siege weapons. Great artillery stations powered up across occupied worlds. A chime sound, system update in progress. A progress bar blinked on every display. Officers gawked at their consoles as the percentage refused to move. Then, after several agonizing minutes, it ticked up to 1. Zorvax's patience snapped. Override the update. The ship's AI responded coldly. Manual override disabled during updates. Estimated time remaining 14 hours. The Admiral clutched his temples. The humans had managed to turn their entire war machine into a bureaucratic nightmare. On the bridge of the Ravager's Claw, Commander Velrax prepared a last-ditch assault. He raised a trembling claw. All batteries fire. Nothing happened. A soft ping resonated from the control panel. A text box appeared. Error command not authorized. Please say please to proceed. Velrax's mandibles clicked in irritation. Fire the damn cannons. Error command not authorized. Please say please. The commander growled. His officers stared. The tension on the bridge was suffocating. Fire the damn cannons, please. A soft chime. The weapons powered up. Velrax buried his face in his claws. Across the Empire, Hegemony screens flickered. Every planetary display, every starship console hijacked. A calm human voice spoke, introducing the human quantum drive. FTL like you've never imagined. Scientific advisors gasped as schematics flashed across their monitors. Their species had spent centuries developing primitive hyperdrives, and now, in a single moment, humans casually presented a system that outclassed their entire civilization. A Hegemony scientist whispered in horror. They solved it, and they're selling it? The propaganda broadcast continued. Humans did not conquer with warships, nor did they crush opposition with weapons. They shattered empires with relentless bureaucracy, automated advertisements, and impossible technology that they casually marketed like consumer goods. Hegemony officers sat in stunned silence, watching yet another infomercial flood their screens. For the first time in history, the Hegemony began to question everything. Maybe, just maybe, they were the primitives all along. Scene opens in the Hegemony War Council chamber, an imposing hall of steel and shadow. The air is thick with tension. Vertal, clad in the regal armor of the Grand Strategist, stands before the High Council. His voice is sharp, unwavering. Vertal, we have suffered indignities beyond measure. The humans mock us with their absurd trickery. We are the Hegemony. We do not bow to primitive. We strike now with everything. The High Council murmurs in agreement, though their eyes betray unease. One among them, a frail but wise elder, hesitates. Elder Counselor, their ways are unpredictable, perhaps. Vertal cutting in. Perhaps nothing. No more games, no more digital absurdities. We end this now. The chamber erupts into cheers. The command is given. The mightiest fleet in Hegemony history mobilizes, engines igniting the void with a terrible glow. The fleet hurtles through space, a vanguard of doom. Admiral Krell watches the data streams with grim anticipation. He expects the usual chaos, malfunctions, unwanted advertisements, security barriers. Instead, nothing. The command deck is eerily quiet. Orders process instantly. Ships move without resistance. No corrupted files. No sudden updates. Krell whispering. It's working. A cold sensation grips his gut. This is too easy, too smooth. Vertal's voice crackles through the comms. Vertal, press forward, show no hesitation. We take their world today. Yet the unease remains. A creeping dread, silent and unseen, coils around the fleet like a predator in the dark. The Hegemony's war machine fires its opening salvo. Turrets swivel, energy cannons discharge, troop carriers descend. No glitches, no warning prompts, no license agreements. Commander Rylan, weapons firing instantly, no biometric confirmation, no 16-step authentication. Admiral Krell clenches his fists. He had expected resistance, obstacles, but there is nothing. Krell, something is wrong. The realization spreads like a sickness. The enemy has done nothing to stop them, and that terrifies them more than any trick ever could. The first hesitations ripple through the fleet. An officer hovers over a console waiting for an approval code that never appeared. A squad of soldiers remains frozen at a docking bay, awaiting deployment orders that never get interrupted. Lieutenant Jen, sir, the system isn't asking for confirmation. Do we proceed? General Thrax. Of course we proceed. Attack, damn you. Yet no one moved. They have never seen such efficiency before. Without the obstacles they are used to, they cannot function. The fleet slows, not because of enemy resistance, but because of its own soldiers, unable to process the unnatural ease of their actions. The great Hegemony faltered. A silent fear grips every officer, every soldier, every strategist. For eons they had been trained to navigate bureaucracy, to push through digital barriers, to strategize around inefficiencies. Now, with nothing in their way, they are powerless. Commander Rylan, whispering, shaken. They've done it. They've broken us without firing a shot. A junior officer collapses, eyes wide with existential dread. Troop transports remain docked, their soldiers paralyzed. The enemy has done nothing, and yet the Hegemony is unraveling from within. Vertal watches in horror from the command bridge. Vertal, attack, you cowards, engage the enemy. No one obeys. Some officers abandon their posts, others shut down their ships out of sheer terror. Entire fleets self-destruct, unwilling to face the abyss of an unstructured battle. The great and terrible hegemony crumbles, not in a blaze of glory, but in the silence of its own obsolescence. Humanity never needed to fight. They only had to do one thing: remove the obstacles. And in doing so, they shattered an empire. The hegemony, battered and humiliated, convened in their war chambers. The once mighty conquerors, who had sought to break humanity, now found themselves scrambling to draft a surrender that would not shatter what remained of their dignity. Grand strategist Vertal loomed over the central holo display, his mandibles twitching in frustration. "We cannot call it surrender," he snarled. "The council will not accept that." Minister Zelzal, his appendages trembling, tapped at his console. "Then we must reframe it. Not surrender, an alliance." The room fell silent. An alliance. The very word was an insult to their war-hardened pride. But the alternative, true defeat, was far worse. A draft was hastily constructed. Under the newly formed Mandatory Friendship Initiative, the hegemony would not be absorbed, but integrated into a mutually beneficial cooperative structure. The language was painstakingly crafted to imply unity rather than subjugation. Humanity responded almost immediately, their message painfully chipper. "Welcome, new partners. We're thrilled to embark on this journey of mutual cooperation. Together, we'll create a better, brighter galaxy." There was no mockery in the tone, no overt gloating, and somehow that made it even worse. The hegemony had lost, and now they were part of something far more insidious than war. Integration began swiftly. Humanity, in its infinite wisdom, did not impose military rule. No occupation fleets, no armed patrol. Instead, they brought something far more terrifying. Paperwork, compliance forms, efficiency quotas, interstellar work permits, terms alien to the hegemony's warrior caste, now dictated their daily existence. Battleships once designed for conquest now carried cargo manifests and environmental impact assessments. Vertal's claws trembled as he read the latest directive. "We must schedule planetary invasions 4 weeks in advance." He turned to his adjutant, incredulous. "There is a processing fee." The human diplomat across the table nodded with a pleasant smile. "Of course. Streamlining resource allocation is key to a harmonious galactic structure." Hegemony generals, who had once commanded legions, now sat in cramped offices, struggling to understand budget approvals and insurance liabilities. It was a level of warfare they had never encountered, and they were losing. Months passed. The final transmission from Earth arrived, marking the official completion of the hegemony's integration. The broadcast opened with a jubilant fanfare. "Congratulations, you are now fully integrated into the friendship program." The hegemony's High Council sat in stunned silence. The message continued with an unsettlingly cheerful tone. "As part of our ongoing commitment to mutual prosperity, you will now enjoy the full benefits of our standardized intergalactic governance. Your fleets have been assigned new trade routes. Your military has been successfully repurposed for planetary logistics, and your leadership is officially recognized as valued regional administrators." Vertal slumped back in his chair. The entire war effort had led to this, being valued administrators in someone else's empire. One of his officers whispered, "Should we celebrate?" Nobody had an answer. The rest of the galaxy watched the hegemony's fall with rapt attention. The most feared military power in known space had not been annihilated. They had not been enslaved. They had been assimilated. Seeing no other option, other species rapidly fell in line. One by one, empires signed trade agreements. Civilizations willingly subjected themselves to humanity's endless bureaucracy rather than risk the alternative. The galaxy, once filled with war and chaos, now found itself bound by an inescapable force. Customer service. And so, without a single shot fired in final victory, humanity became the de facto rulers of the stars. Not with war, but with efficiency. Their reign was absolute, and it had terms and conditions. The galactic hegemony, once the most feared and ruthless force in the known universe, had been brought to its knees, not through superior firepower but through efficiency. Under humanity's structured rule, chaos turned to order. The hegemony was no longer a brutal war machine but a valued partner in the newly established United Galactic Community. Gone were the days of conquest and domination. Now former warlords attended mandatory human-led leadership workshops with titles like Empathy and Efficiency, A Balanced Approach, and Intergalactic Diplomacy 101, How to Win Hearts, Not Battles. Tigrash, the unyielding, once known for reducing entire planets to ash, now sat in a well-lit conference room, awkwardly raising a clawed hand. "Ah, what exactly is a trust fall?" he asked, glancing at his fellow former conqueror. Humanity had won. not with plasma cannons but with PowerPoint presentations. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. The hegemony's fall had not been orchestrated by a grand tactician or a military genius. No, the true mastermind behind humanity's psychological warfare was far more terrifying. It was a former customer service agent. The realization sent shivers through the ranks of alien leaders. They spoke of a singular force, honed through years of patience and frustration. A being who had faced the worst bureaucracy humanity had to offer and survived. Their resilience, murmured High General Kravlok, was forged in the fires of corporate call centers. The mere thought of battling against someone who had endured the dreaded phrase, "Let me transfer you to another department," was enough to make entire fleets surrender preemptively. The galaxy trembled, knowing it had been bested not by soldiers but by people who once had to explain, repeatedly, that yes, the router was plugged in. Verktal, once the hegemony's most brilliant war strategist, had spent decades orchestrating battles, devising flawless invasions and outmaneuvering the greatest minds in the galaxy. Now he faced his greatest and final challenge, a human-run space cafe. He had come seeking solace, a place to reflect on his failures. Instead, he was handed a feedback survey by a smiling human employee. The paper felt heavier than any battle report he had ever held. He stared at the question, "Do you feel valued as a friend?" For a long time he hesitated. He had spent his life believing in dominance, in conquest, and yet as he looked around at the calm chatter, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the sight of former enemies laughing over pastries, he realized humanity had done the impossible. With a weary sigh, he picked up the pen and checked yes, the galaxy had changed forever. Not through war but through structure. Humanity had not just won, they had organized the universe into compliance. As Verktal walked away from the cafe, he finally understood. Resistance had never been an option. The bureaucracy had already won. The hegemony ruled with an iron grip, its dominion stretching across countless systems. Planets trembled beneath the weight of its authority, their people forced into servitude under the doctrine of absolute control. Strength was the currency of survival, and submission was the price of existence. For centuries, the empire dictated the fate of lesser species, stamping out dissent before it could take root. Every rebellion was crushed before it could bloom. Every challenge to their rule was met with overwhelming force. And then there were the human. They were an anomaly, a species that obeyed but never quite submitted. They adapted, they learned, and most curiously, they smiled even in the face of oppression. The hegemony watched, yet it failed to recognize the storm brewing beneath humanity's quiet compliance. Ambassador David Carter, a diplomat whose words could cut sharper than any blade. He played the long game, weaving alliances where none were thought possible. He understood that battles were won before the first shot was fired. High Chancellor Vektor, the embodiment of hegemonic arrogance. To him, history was a cycle, one that always ended with the strong standing over the weak. He did not see humanity as a threat. He barely saw them at all. Commander Alia Morgan, a shadow in the dark, a whisper between the stars. Her mission was clear: to prepare humanity's greatest deception, the ultimate checkmate against the hegemony's unchecked power. Each had a role to play in the unraveling of an empire. For decades, the hegemony saw humanity as a species of little consequence, useful enough to be tolerated, but not significant enough to warrant concern. They followed orders, paid their dues, and fought in the empire's wars as expendable foot soldiers. But something had changed. Reports began to circulate. Human-built technologies were appearing in black markets, their designs eerily sophisticated. Strategic maneuvering in the outer colonies suggested an intelligence network far more intricate than expected. The whispers reached Vektor's ears, but he dismissed them. "They are cattle," he scoffed. "Cattle do not build fences for their masters." And so, the hegemony ignored the quiet preparations unfolding beneath their notice. Then came the decree. By unanimous decision of the High Council, the species designated human shall be eradicated, effective immediately. Their presence is a liability to the order of the galaxy. Their continued existence is a threat to stability. The fleets are to mobilize at once. A death sentence, signed and sealed without hesitation. Armadas moved, warships ignited their engines, and the extermination began. Across the stars, species watched in horror. Some whispered condolences, others turned away, unwilling to share humanity's fate. And yet, humanity did not panic. The silence of Earth was deafening. The hegemony expected terror, desperate pleas, perhaps even a futile attempt at resistance. What they received was paperwork. A single transmission arrived on the High Chancellor's desk. It was a formal response, structured with impeccable diplomatic precision. To the esteemed High Chancellor Vector, we acknowledge receipt of your declaration of war. In accordance with Galactic Law, Section 42B, we request a 90-day review period to process this action through proper bureaucratic channel. Attached was a supplementary document. So you've just discovered you're not the most advanced species in the galaxy, a self-help guide for emerging powers. Vector's claws tightened around the paper. The audacity, the sheer absurdity. And yet, even as he fumed, fleets began disappearing. Systems fell silent. Strategic installations went dark. The hegemony had already lost. They just hadn't realized it yet. Scene opens in the Grand Council chamber of the hegemony, an empire spanning thousands of star systems. High Chancellor Vector, this must be a joke, a human attempt at humor. The chamber erupts in derisive laughter as the Chancellor holds up the official human response to their declaration of war, a bureaucratic document titled, "So you've just discovered you're not the most advanced species in the galaxy." Counselor Gorin, they mock us, Chancellor. They expect us to believe they are a threat. Commander Silkath, they have no dreadnoughts to rival ours, no planetary siege engines. Their fleets are barely a century old. Their resistance will be crushed before it begins. The Council unanimously agrees. Humanity has doomed itself. The extermination fleets are launched. An emergency transmission from the front lines. A hegemony war station. Bastion 117 has ceased all communications. Commander Vower, frustrated. Report, what happened to Bastion 17? Officer Kaimek, we just received a single transmission before silence. It reads, "We surrender." Confused murmurs ripple through the command center. Commander Vower, that station had 5 planetary-class defense arrays. Who attacked them, Officer Kaimek, shaking? They didn't say, but when we hailed back, the only reply was, "The humans are already here." A hushed silence falls over the war room. No human fleet was detected in the system. No battle was fought, and yet the station had fallen. A transmission arrives at the hegemony capital. Unlike the humans' previous bureaucratic response, this one is surgical, clinical. Human AI voice, we have assessed your technological limitations. They were disappointing, so we fixed them. In real time, the hegemony's encrypted networks flicker and distort. Unauthorized updates flood their military systems, revealing countless vulnerabilities that should have been impossible to detect. Counselor Gorin, what is happening? New data flows in. Invisible threats materialize on every screen. Fleet compositions, hidden weaknesses, unexploited flaws, all laid bare. Human AI voice, you never saw us coming, but we've been watching, and we were disappointed. The hegemony deploys emergency long-range scans, desperate to locate human force. Commander Silkath, this is impossible. Our sensors would have detected them. Screens flicker. What was once empty void now teems with warships. Hundreds, no thousands. Bases that shouldn't exist. Fortresses hidden in gravitational shadow. Soldier panicked. They've been here the whole time. We just never saw them. Across the hegemony, strategic outposts vanish. No alarms, no alerts, only a growing void where defenses should be. The hegemony's greatest minds gather in a final emergency meeting. High Chancellor Vector, every contingency has failed. Every prediction was wrong. How did this happen? Silence. None dare speak the truth. That the war was lost before it even began. That their own arrogance had blinded them. Human AI voice, your species built an empire on control, on fear, on strength. But you forgot the lesson we learned long ago. The greatest power is not in fleets or armies. It is in knowing your enemy before they know themselves. A final transmission appears, a single polite message. Human diplomat, David Carter, we could have destroyed you, but we won't, because we are not you. The screen fades to black, and with it, the reign of the hegemony. The silent takeover begins. The vast expanse of hegemony-controlled space stretches across the stars, planets, warships, and stations, all synchronized under an iron grip of control. But today, something is different. Hegemony fleets and bases simultaneously experience an unexplained system-wide reboot. Lights flicker, control panels freeze, and automated defenses deactivate without warning. Panic spreads as engineers and technicians scramble to diagnose the anomaly. Then a message appears on every control screen, in crisp, polite lettering. Your system has been optimized. Have a nice day. For a moment, there is silence. Then chaos. Commanders bark orders, demanding immediate diagnostics. Engineers rush to undo the changes, except they can't. Every attempt to override the system is met with failure. Yet, paradoxically, Every function now runs smoother than before. Faster responses, more efficient power distribution, enhanced security. Hegemony officers stare at their screens, realization dawning. This wasn't sabotage, it was something far worse. Cracks in the armor, the Hegemony's hidden weakness. Inside the High War Council chamber, alarm klaxons wail. High Chancellor Vector slams his fist against the armrest of his throne-like chair. Vector, report. Who is responsible for this treachery? A trembling officer hesitates before answering. Officer, we believe it's the humans, Chancellor. Silence, then uproarious laughter from the assembled warlords. General Zalog, impossible. The humans are nothing more than bureaucratic This is a minor inconvenience, nothing more. But behind their laughter, whispers of unease spread. As system checks continue, the truth emerges. Encrypted orders are ignored, overrides rejected. Even high-clearance emergency protocols are rerouted. It's as if the very infrastructure of the Hegemony no longer recognizes its rulers. Then, a chilling realization. Human infiltrators didn't just hack the system. They rewrote the rulebook, and they had been inside the Hegemony's networks for decades. The bureaucratic Trojan horse. Hegemony intelligence agencies rush to uncover the extent of the breach. Their findings are perplexing. Among endless digital archives, they find thousands, no millions of officially approved documents, requests and minor alterations, all filed under proper Hegemony protocols. Every single system update, every glitch over the past 30 cycles, all stamped, approved and legally sanctioned. One investigator, a seasoned bureaucrat, trembles as he pulls up an ancient security update from decades ago. The request was filed under routine maintenance. It bears a signature, a human name. Next to it, a cheerful smiley face. For a moment, the investigator simply stares. Then, with growing horror, he realizes this wasn't an attack, it was administration. Desperation sets in. The last-ditch effort. The Hegemony's highest warlords gather in the emergency command chamber. Their expressions are grim. Vector, enough. Activate the doomsday protocols. Murmurs of approval. Desperate measures for desperate times. Missile silos across the galaxy prime their warheads. Planet killer fleets prepare for launch. AI-controlled extinction protocols execute their final calculations. The button is pressed. Nothing happened. Confused officers frantically check their systems. Panic spreads as screens display a new message. Oh, we disabled those years ago. That was part of our intern training program. The room falls into stunned silence. The warlords exchange uncertain glances. For the first time in centuries, fear grips them. The final revelation, humanity's masterstroke. Across the galaxy, a final transmission is broadcast. A transparency report made public to every species under Hegemony rule. The contents are devastating. For 30 cycles, humanity had been watching, mapping every strategic outpost, protecting weaker civilizations from oppression, silently dismantling the Hegemony's stranglehold over the stars. Every secret war crime, every brutal conquest, every cover-up laid bare for the galaxy to see. Vector watches the data scroll across the screen, his claws digging into the armrest. The final line burns itself into his mind. The war is over. There was never a need for battle. The galaxy doesn't fear you anymore. The Chancellor collapses into his seat. The realization is clear. Humanity didn't win through war. They won through the truth, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Hegemony's central war room was in chaos. Grand admirals barked orders. Analysts pored over data streams, and fleet mobilization orders were issued with frantic urgency. The High Chancellor sat at the center of it all, his gnarled claws gripping the armrests of his throne-like chair. Our forces will crush them, he snarled, his voice raw with desperation. Humanity's trickery ends here. We outnumber them. We have ruled for millennia. They are insects, yet doubt lingered in the air. The fleet commanders, once steadfast, hesitated. Reports from the front lines were disturbing. Entire fleets had gone silent without a single battle fought. Starbases surrendered with no resistance. The humans had not engaged in war. They had rewritten the very rules of it. The Chancellor's eyes burned as he watched the tactical display. The final order left his lips with trembling fury. All ships, fire. A moment passed, then another, silent. Across the vastness of space, the Hegemony fleets drifted, their weapons primed but unfired. Admirals glanced at each other, unsure. Some tried to press launch sequences, only to be met with error messages. Others simply refused. One by one, entire armadas sent their responses back to the High Chancellor's command center. We will not fire. We refuse. This war is lost. Defections rippled through the hegemony's ranks. Starship captains shut down their engines and opened communications with human forces. Entire planets declared independence. The Chancellor's iron grip fractured into dust before his very eyes. His empire was crumbling, not from battle but from the realization that they had already lost before a single shot was fired. The transmission echoed across the galactic network. Ambassador David Carter's face appeared, calm yet commanding. His voice carried the weight of an entire species. The hegemony has two choices: surrender and integrate, or fade into irrelevance. There was no malice in his words, only certainty. The galaxy watched, breath held. The mighty hegemony, who had ruled through fear for centuries, was now being offered something unheard of: mercy. The High Chancellor, his power slipping, clenched his fists. His advisors, once loyal, now whispered among themselves. Even the most hardened among them began to doubt their cause. The weight of history pressed upon them. Would they take the offer, or be forgotten? Before an answer could come, reality itself twisted. Human ships materialized inside the hegemony's most secure base, without warning, without FTL gates, without detectable travel. It was impossible, yet it had happened. The security feeds showed them hovering above the Chancellor's own palace, undetected until they chose to be seen. Weapons remained idle. No destruction was needed, only a demonstration. A single message flashed across every screen in the hegemony: we were here before this conversation began. Panic rippled through the halls of power. The hegemony's greatest minds had spent centuries perfecting military dominance, and yet against humanity, they had been outmatched before they even knew a war had started. The High Chancellor's resignation came not with a battle, but a simple statement: we surrender. His empire, once the unchallenged ruler of the stars, fell without a single human casualty. The banners of tyranny were lowered, replaced by a new era. A galactic council was formed, with humanity not as conquerors but as equals among the stars. The old fear of oppression was replaced with cooperation, innovation, and perhaps in time, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy faced something truly new: balance. Opening scene: the Galactic Council Chamber. A vast and ancient structure that once echoed with the commands of the hegemony's rule. Now it is filled with representatives from across the galaxy, gathered under new banners. Narration: the hegemony, once the unchallenged ruler of the stars, is no more. Its empire, built on subjugation and fear, crumbles into history. Borders are redrawn, not with the stroke of conquest, but with the agreement of free species. For the first time in history, the galaxy breathes without a yoke upon its throat. Ambassador Carter: today we do not celebrate victory, we acknowledge a beginning. The chains of the past are broken, and the future belongs to all who dwell among the stars. Narration: the council chambers hum with cautious optimism. Even former hegemony officers, once bound to a system of oppression, sit among those they once ruled, not as conquerors, not as enemies, but as equals. Scene: a massive research facility on a neutral world. Holographic displays showcase breakthroughs in energy production, FTL technology, and AI governance. Narration: humanity, once dismissed as a backwater species, now stands at the forefront of progress. They do not hoard their advancements, they share them. The gift of unrestricted FTL travel, limitless energy, and ethical AI governance spreads like wildfire. Hegemony scientist: in disbelief, they fixed our quantum stabilization errors, the problems we struggled with for centuries. Human engineer: we had some free time, thought we'd help. Narration: but with progress comes responsibility. Some fear that such rapid change may unravel civilizations too accustomed to stagnation. Others see it as the dawn of a golden age. Scene: a newly liberated planet. The streets, once patrolled by the hegemony's enforcers, are alive with celebration. Narration: for generations, countless worlds suffered under the iron grip of the hegemony. Now they rise. Nations long silenced reclaim their voices. Cultures, nearly erased, flourish once more. The scars of tyranny remain, but hope has taken root. Former slave leader: for the first time we hold our own destiny in our hands, and we will not squander it. Narration: alliances are forged, not through force but through shared idea. Innovation flourishes as species once shackled now shape their own futures. Scene: the Galactic Council's administration wing. Towering stacks of forms, neatly filed, hum with efficiency. Narration: where warships failed, bureaucracy prevailed. Humanity's final, unexpected weapon, the mastery of paperwork, reshapes governance itself. Hegemony official: how is everything running so smoothly? No inefficiencies, no endless deliberations. Human bureaucrat: simp: we color-coded the tax structures, optimized the funding requests, and implemented a standardized digital filing system. Narration, the once chaotic administration, which took cycles to process simple requests, now runs with seamless precision. Even former hegemony officials admit, with reluctant admiration, it just works. Final scene, a broadcast sent across all known space. The final transmission from the human-led initiative appears on screens galaxy-wide. Narration, as humanity steps back from the helm, they leave behind not just a changed galaxy, but a message that captures their essence. Message on screens: welcome to the future. Please read the guidelines before submitting complaints. Silence, then laugh. For all their power, all their brilliance, humanity's greatest weapon has always been its wit. The era of dominance is over. The age of cooperation has begun. The guardians of the stars fade in, a vast glittering expanse of space. Human-built orbital stations float alongside ships from countless species. The galaxy, once ruled by war, now hums with the quiet strength of diplomacy. Once, humanity was underestimated. A lesser species, they said, primitive, chaotic, doomed to destruction. But now, they are something else entirely. We see a council chamber, aliens of all kinds, seated in circular rows. At the center, a human diplomat, calm and confident, mediates a dispute between two warlike factions. Their leaders glare at each other, but the humans' measured words bring them to an uneasy truce. They were conquerors, yes, but not with weapons, not with fleets or armies. No, humanity did what no empire before them could. They united the stars, not by force, but by necessity, by sheer, undeniable competence. Scenes of human-led peacekeeping fleets, standing between once bitter rivals. A Terran captain shakes hands, or the equivalent of an alien general. A human engineer shares blueprints with an amphibious scientist, ushering in an age of shared prosperity. War was never their goal, survival was, and in their survival, they learned to protect. Now their unmatched technology is not a sword, but a shield, a promise that no empire will ever enslave another, that no voice will go unheard. Fade to black, the unexpected power of bureaucracy. Scene opens in a grand hall, filled with towering shelves, overflowing with datapads and holographic documents. A former hegemony commander, once feared across the stars, now frowns at a tablet, covered in human legal text. Commander Torvak, squinting at the document. What in the void is a subsection 5B, interspecies trade dispute clause? And why does it reference an appendix 300 pages long? A nearby human administrator, wearing a crisp suit and an infuriatingly calm expression, gestures toward the document. Human administrator, oh, that's just standard arbitration. It ensures both parties comply with mutually beneficial outcomes, while avoiding unnecessary litigation. You'll want to cross-reference that with Form 7C. Torvak, exasperated. Enough. Torvak glares at the human, then sighs, rubbing his temples. Around them, alien officials, once warlords and despots, now diligently file paperwork. Their former rivalries settled through treaty negotiations, instead of bloodshed. At first they resisted. They mocked human bureaucracy as a tangled, bloated mess, until they saw it for what it truly was: a weapon, a montage. Trade disputes resolved with efficiency. Former enemies signing treaties in mere hours. A once corrupt government, realizing too late that humans had filed the necessary paperwork to dismantle their empire legally before they could react. Bureaucracy, the final, unexpected frontier, humanity's ultimate form of warfare. Fade to black, a final, humbling moment. A dimly lit office. Stacks of human-made manuals are piled high. An exhausted hegemony official, their once proud uniform now wrinkled, flips through one marked Galactic Integration self-help guide. Their eyes skim over various sections. How to adjust to a post-empire economy. Making friends, not enemies. A beginner's guide. And finally official, reading aloud, stunned. So you've been conquered by humans. A step-by-step recovery plan. They rub their temples. Scrolling further, at the bottom of the page a bright yellow banner displays an all-too-cheerful message. Screen text. Need assistance? Call our 24/7 customer service hotline. The official stares at it for a long moment, before slowly shaking their head. Official. With a sigh, they thought of everything. For all their power, their intelligence, their impossible victories, humanity's greatest weapon has always been their wit. Fade out as a soft chime echoes through the room. An incoming message from human administration. The official groan. The age of dominance is over. The age of cooperation has begun. Fade to black.